Part 2. Guardsman. Chapter 5. After completing the briefing, Mr. Captain Chachu ordered. Corporal Gall, stay here. The others are free. When the rest of the section commanders came out in single file to the back of each other's heads, Mr. Captain looked at Guy for a while, swaying in his chair and whistling the old soldier's song Calm Down, Mom. Mr. Captain Chachu did not look at all like Mr. Captain Tudor. He was a squat, black man, had a big bald head. He was much older than Toyota. In the recent past he was a military officer, a tanker, a participant in 8 seaside incidents, a recipient of the Fire Cross and 3 for Rage on Fire badges. They talked about his fantastic fight with a white submarine when his tank was hit directly and caught fire, and he kept shooting until he lost consciousness from terrible burns. He was said to have no living place on his body, all his skin was grafted, and his left hand was missing 3 fingers. He was straight and rude, like a true warrior, and, unlike Mr. Captain Tooth, he never considered it necessary to hide his mood from either his subordinates or his superiors. If he was happy, the whole team knew Mr. Captain Chachu was happy today, but if he was in a bad mood and whistled Calm Down, Mom, looking him in the eye with a tired look, Guy was desperate at the thought that he had so far upset and angered this wonderful man in some unknown way. He hurriedly remembered his own misdemeanors and the misdemeanors of his section's guards, but he could not remember anything that was no longer suspended by the careless movement of his fallen hand and by the hoarse, grumpy, "Okay, that's why the guard. I don't care." Mr. Captain stopped whistling and swaying. "I don't like talking and writing, Corporal," he said. "Either you recommend candidate Sim or you don't recommend him. What exactly is it?" "That's right, I recommend it, Mr. Captain," Guy said hurriedly. "But." "No buts, Corporal. Do you recommend it or don't you recommend it?" "That's right, I recommend it." "Then how am I supposed to understand these 2 pieces of paper?" Mr. Captain impatiently removed the folded papers from his chest pocket and unfolded them on the table, holding them with his crippled hand. "I recommend the above Max Sim as loyal and capable." "Well, there's all this chatter for approval of a high-ranking candidate for the private military guard. And here is your second letter, Corporal. In connection with the above, I consider it my duty to draw the command's attention to the need to thoroughly check the past life of this candidate for the rank and file of the military guard M. Shama. Masaraksh. What do you want after all, Corporal?" "Mr. Captain," Guy said excitedly. "But I'm really in a tough spot. I know candidate Sim as a capable and dedicated citizen of the guard. I'm sure it will be of much use. But I don't really know his past. Moreover, he doesn't remember it himself. Assuming that the only place in the guard is crystal clear." Yes, said Mr. Captain impatiently. "Crystal clear, devotees without looking back, to the last drop, with all my heart. In short, here's what, Corporal. You're going to pick up one of these papers right away and tear it up. We should think about it. I can't come to the foreman with 2 pieces of paper. Either yes or no. We're in the guard, not at the Faculty of Philosophy, Corporal. 2 minutes to think about it." Mr. Captain took a thick file of things to do from his desk and threw it in disgust in front of him. Guy looked at his watch sadly. It was an awfully difficult choice to make. It was dishonest and unguarded to hide from the command my lack of knowledge of what was recommended, even when it came to Maxim. But on the other hand, it was dishonest and unguarded to evade responsibility by placing the decision on Mr. Captain, who saw Maxim only twice, and even then in company service. Well, good. One more time. 4. He warmly and personally took the guard's tasks to eliminate the consequences of the war and destroy the agents of a potential aggressor. Without a hitch, he was examined by the Department of Public Health. When sent by Mr. Captain Toot and Mr. Staff Physician Zogu to a secret institution, apparently for verification, he passed this test. True, this is Maxim's own testimony, he lost his documents, but how could he otherwise not be under supervision? Finally, a brave, natural fighter, he killed the Pied Piper gang alone, is sympathetic, easy to talk to, good-natured, and absolutely selfless. And in general, a man of extraordinary abilities. Against, it is completely unknown who he is and where he comes from. He either does not remember anything about his past or does not want to reveal anything. And he has no documents. But is this all really suspicious? The government controls only the borders and the central district. 2/3 of the country's territory is still mired in anarchy, there are famines, epidemics, people are fleeing from there, and everyone is undocumented, and young people do not even know what documents are. And how many of them are sick, who have lost their memory, even geeks. After all, the main thing is that Maxim is not a geek. Well, Corporal? Said Mr. Captain, leaving a sheet of paper. That's right, Mr. Captain, said Guy in a desperate voice. Let me. He took his test report on Maxim and slowly tore it up. Good solution, Mr. Captain garked. That's like a guard. Papers, inks, tests. The fight will test everything. That's when we get in our cars and move into the nuclear trap zone, we'll immediately see who's ours and who's not. That's right, Guy said without much confidence. He understood the old warrior well, but he saw equally well that a war veteran and hero of seaside incidents was somewhat mistaken, like all veterans and all heroes. Fight is fighting and cleanliness is clean. However, this does not apply to Maxim. It's very clean. Masaraksh, said Mr. Captain. The health department missed him, and the rest is up to us. After saying this mysterious phrase, he looked angrily at Guy and added, the guardsman fully trusts a friend, and if he does not trust him, then he is not a friend, to drive him in the neck. You surprised me, Corporal. All right, go to your section. There's not much time left. During surgery, I'll look after this candidate myself. Guy snapped his heels and walked out. Outside the door, he let himself smile. After all, the old warrior could not resist taking responsibility. Good things are always good. Now we can honestly consider Maxim a friend. Maka Sim. You can't say his real name. Either he came up with it while he was delirious, or he really comes from these highlanders. What do you mean by the name of their ancient king? Zaram Shikakbish Muzarai. Guy went to the parade ground and looked for his section with his eyes. The tireless Pandey drove the guys through the upper window of the 3-story building model. The guys got wet, which was bad because the surgery was only an hour away. Oh lag, Guy shouted from a distance. Set it off, Pandey yelled. Stand up. The section was built quickly. Pandey commanded at attention, marched to Guy and reported. Mr. Corporal, the section is overcoming the assault town. Get up, Guy ordered, trying to express his disapproval in tone, as Corporal Sarabesh was very good at doing. He walked in front of the line with his hands behind his back, looking at familiar faces. Gray, blue eyes, ready to carry out any order and therefore slightly swayed, watched his every move. He felt how close and dear they were to him, these 12 big guys, 6 full enlisted guards on the right flank and 6 ordinary candidates on the left, all in nice black jumpsuits with polished buttons, all in shiny short-toed boots, all wearing berets famously moved to his right eyebrow. No, not all of them. In the middle of the line, on the candidate's right flank, the tower was candidate Maxim, a very nice guy, a favorite, as unfortunate as it may be for a commander to have pets, but, it's okay that he doesn't have his weird brown eyes. It will learn over time. But here's, Guy went to Maxim and fastened his upper button. Then he got on tiptoes and adjusted his beret. It seems like everything is. Again, he stretched his mouth to his ears in the ranks. All right. We'll become unaccustomed. The candidate, after all, is the youngest in the section. To maintain the appearance of justice, Guy adjusted Maxim's neighbor's buckle, although it was not necessary. Then he took 3 steps back and commanded freely. The section stood freely. She put her right leg slightly aside and put her hands behind her back. Guards, Guy said. Today, as part of a company, we are engaged in a regular operation to neutralize potential enemy agents. The operation is carried out according to the 33 scheme. Gentlemen, ordinary people certainly remember their duties under this scheme, but I think it is useful to remind gentlemen candidates who forget to fasten buttons. The section gets one entrance. The section is divided into 4 groups, 3 triples and an external reserve. The trio, consisting of 2 real privates and 1 candidate, consistently walk around apartments without making a fuss. Upon entering the apartment, every 3 act as follows. The candidate guards the front entrance, the second private, without being distracted, takes the back door, and the elder inspects the premises. A reserve of 3 candidates, led by a section commander, in this case me, remains at the bottom of the entrance with the task, first, not to let anyone out during the operation, and secondly, to immediately assist the 3 who need it. You know the composition of the triples and the reserve. Warning, he said, stepping back 1 step further. For trios and reserves, figure it out. There was a short multiple movement. The section figured it out. No one got the wrong place, no one clashed with guns, no one slipped or lost a beret, as happened in previous classes. Maxim stood on the right flank of the reserve and smiled at the top of his mouth again. Guy suddenly had the wild idea that Maxim was looking at the whole thing as a fun game. This was certainly not the case, because it couldn't be so. It was all the fault, no doubt, that stupid smile. Not bad, Guy grumbled in imitation of Corporal Sarabesh, and looked favorably at Pandy. Well done, old man, I trained the guys. Attention, he said. Section, build up. Again, a short multiple movement, beautiful in its clarity and impeccability, and again the section stood in line in front of him. Good. It's just great. Even inside, things are getting colder. Guy put his hands behind his back again and walked around. Guards, he said. We are the support and only hope of the state during this difficult time. Only the unknown fathers can rely on us for their great work. It was true, and it was charm and detachment. The chaos created by the criminal war has barely passed, but its consequences are still being deeply felt today. Guards, brothers. We have one goal, to uproot everything that draws us back to chaos. The enemy on our borders is not asleep, he has repeatedly and without success tried to drag us into a new war on land and at sea. And it is only thanks to the courage and resilience of our brother soldiers that our country is able to enjoy peace and quiet. But no effort by the army will achieve its goal if the enemy within is not broken. It is our and only our task to defeat the enemy within, guards. For this purpose, we make many sacrifices, we disturb the peace of our mothers, brothers and children, we deprive an honest worker, an honest official, an honest merchant and an industrialist of their well-deserved rest. They know why we're forced to invade their homes and they welcome us as their best friends and protectors. Remember this and don't let yourself get carried away in the noble fervor of accomplishing your task. A friend is a friend and an enemy is an enemy. Any questions? No, the section barked in 12 sips. Smyrna. 30 minutes to rest and check equipment. Are disperse. The section rushed in all directions, and then the guards went to the barracks in groups of 2 and 3. Guy slowly followed, feeling pleasantly empty. Maxim was waiting for him at a distance, smiling in advance. Let's play with words, he suggested. Guy groaned in his mind. If you pull it off, pull it off. What could be more unnatural than a candidate, a spendthrift, molesting a corporal with his family names half an hour before the start of surgery? This is not the time, he said as dryly as possible. Are you worried? Maxim asked sympathetically. Guy stopped and looked up to the sky. So what should I do? What should I do? It turns out that it is absolutely impossible to eat such a good-natured naive giant, and even your sister's savior, frankly speaking, a person much taller than you are in every way except a marching man. Guy looked around and said pleading. Look, Mac, you're embarrassing me. When we're in the barracks, I'm your corporal, your chief, and I order you to obey. I've told you 100 times. But I'm ready to obey, order me, Maxim objected. I know what discipline is. Order it. I've already ordered it. Adjust your equipment. No, excuse me, Guy, that's not what you ordered. You ordered me to rest and adjust my gear, did you forget? I've fitted my equipment and now I'm resting. Let's play, I've come up with a good word. Mac, understand, a subordinate has the right to contact the boss, firstly, only in accordance with the established form, and secondly, exclusively on duty. Yes, I remember. Paragraph 9. But this is during service. And now we're having a rest with you. Where did you get the idea that I'm vacationing? Guy asked. They were behind a model of a barbed wire fence, and thank God no one saw them here. No one sees this tower fall shoulder against the fence and always tries to grab its corporal by the button. I only relax at home, but even at home I would not allow any subordinate to. Look, let go of my button and fasten your. Maxim fastened up and said. One thing at work, another at home. Why? Let's not talk about this. I'm tired of telling you the same thing. By the way, when are you going to stop smiling in the ranks? The charter does not say this, Maxim replied immediately. As for repeating the same thing, here's what. Don't be offended, Guy, I know you're not a talker. You're not a talker. Who? You're not a person who can speak beautifully. Speaker? Speaker. Yes, not a speaker. But still. You gave us a speech today. The words are right and good. But when you told me at home about the tasks of the guard and the situation in the country, it was very interesting. That was very much your way. And this is the 7th time you've said the same thing here, and it's not your way. That's very true. It's very similar. It's really boring. Huh? Aren't you offended? Guy wasn't offended. So a cold needle hit his ego. He still thought he was speaking as persuasively and smoothly as Corporal Sarabesh or even Mr. Captain Toot. However, if you think about it, Corporal Sarabs and Mr. Captain have also been repeating the same thing for 3 years. And this is not surprising, let alone shameful, because during these 3 years no significant changes in the internal and external situation have taken place. Where does the charter say that? Guy asked, smiling, for a subordinate to comment to his boss. It says the opposite, Maxim admitted with a sigh. I think this is wrong. After all, you listen to my advice when you're solving ballistics problems, and you listen to my comments when you're wrong in your calculations. It's at home, Guy said heartily. Anything is possible at home. What if you give us the wrong aim when shooting? Didn't take into account the wind correction well. Huh? No way, Guy said firmly. Is it wrong to shoot? Maxim was amazed. Shoot as you're told, Guy said sternly. In these 10 minutes, Mac, you've spent 50 days in punishment cells. Do you understand? No, I don't understand. And if in a fight? What is in combat? You're aiming the wrong way. Huh? Said Guy, who had never commanded combat before. He suddenly remembered how Corporal Buktu got entangled in the map while reconnaissance, drove the section under dagger fire from a neighboring company, stayed there himself and put half a section down, and we knew he was confused, but no one thought to fix it. God, Guy suddenly realized, we wouldn't even think we could fix it. A commander's order is a law, and even more than a law, laws are sometimes discussed, but orders cannot be discussed. Orders can be discussed wildly, harmful, simply dangerous, and finally. But he does not understand this, and not only does not understand, there is nothing to understand here, but simply does not admit it. How many times has it happened before? He takes a self-evident thing and rejects it, and you can't convince him in any way, and on the contrary, you start to doubt it yourself, your head is spinning, and you are completely stunned. No. He is an extraordinary person after all. A rare, unprecedented person. I learned the language in a month. I completed my diploma in 2 days. 2 more days ago, I read everything I have. He knows mathematics and mechanics better than teachers, but our courses are taught by real specialists. Or take Uncle Khan. Recently, the old man has been addressing all his monologues at the table exclusively to Maxim. Moreover, he has repeatedly made it clear that Maxim is perhaps the only person who, in these difficult times, shows such abilities and such interest in fossil animals. He drew Maxim on a piece of paper some terrible animals, and Maxim drew him some even more terrible animals on a piece of paper, and they argued which of these animals was more ancient, and who came from whom, and why this happened. Scientific books from his uncle's library were used, and still Maxim did not let the old man open his mouth, and Guy and Rada did not understand a word from his uncle's library what was said, and the uncle shouted hoarsely, then tore the drawings to pieces and trampled them with his feet, calling Maxim ignorant, worse than the fool Shapsha, then suddenly began to scratch both violently with his hands, thin gray hair on the back of his head, and muttered with a shocked smile, boldly, Masaraksh, boldly. You have an imagination, young man. Guy especially remembered one evening when the old man was thundered by Maxim's statement that some of these antediluvian creatures were walking on their backs, which statement seemed to solve a long, pre-war dispute very simply and naturally. He knows mathematics, he knows mechanics, he knows military chemistry very well, paleontology, my God, who knows paleontology nowadays, he also knows paleontology. He paints like an artist, sings like an artist. And is kind, unnaturally kind. He dispersed and killed the bandits, one of 8, with his bare hands, the other would walk like a rooster in his place, spit on everyone, and he would suffer, stay awake at night, upset when he was praised and thanked, and then one day he exploded. He turned white and shouted that it was not fair to praise him for the murder. Oh my God, what a problem it was to persuade him to join the guard. He understands everything, agrees with everything and wants to, but he says he will have to shoot there. Into people. I tell him, geeks, not people, scum are worse than bandits. Thank God, we agreed that at first, until he gets used to it, he will simply disarm. It's both funny and scary. No, it's not for nothing that he keeps saying like he came from another world. I know this world. My uncle even has a book about it. Zartak Misty Country. They say that the Zartak Valley lies in the east in the mountains, where happy people live. According to the description, they are all like Maxim there. And here's the amazing thing. If any of them leave their valley, they immediately forget where they come from and what happened to them before, they only remember what they are from another world. My uncle, however, says that there is no such valley, all this is an invention, there is only the Zartak Ridge, and then, he says, during that war, they pounded this ridge with super bombs, so the mountaineers there have lost their memories for life. Why are you silent? Maxim asked. Do you think about me? Guy looked away. Here's what you are, he said. I only ask you one thing, in the interests of discipline, never show that you know more than me. Watch how others behave and act the same way. I'm trying, Maxim said sadly. He thought for a while and added, it's hard to get used to it. None of this is the case with us. What about your wound? Guy asked to change the subject. My wounds heal quickly, Maxim said absently. Listen, Guy, let's go straight home after surgery. So why are you watching this way? I miss Rada a lot. Aren't you? We'll take the guys to the barracks, and then we'll go home by truck. Let's let the driver go. Guy filled his chest with more air, but then the silver speaker box on the pole almost above their heads growled, and the crew officer's voice commanded. 6th Company, go out to build on the parade ground. Attention, 6th Company. And Guy just barked. Candidate Sim. Stop talking, go ahead and build. Maxim rushed, but Guy caught him by the gun. Please, he said. Like everyone else. Hold on like everyone else. The captain himself will be watching you today. 3 minutes later, the company was built. It was already dark, and spotlights flashed above the parade ground. Trucks grumbled softly behind the line with the engines. As always before the operation, Mr. Brigadier, accompanied by Mr. Captain Chachu, silently walked around the line, examining every guard. He was calm, his eyes were narrowed, and the corners of his lips were warmly raised. Then, without saying anything, he nodded to Mr. Captain and left. Mr. Captain, leaning over and waving his crippled hand, went out in front of the line and turned his dark, almost black face towards the guards. "Guards!" he croaked in a voice that gave Guy goosebumps. "It's up to us. Let's do it with dignity. Attention, company. By cars. Corporal Gall, come to me." When Guy ran up and stretched out in front of him, Mr. Captain said softly, "Your section has a special task. Don't get out of the car upon arrival. I'll be the one who will be in command.